I first heard about Raventon from an old map I found in a secondhand bookshop tucked away in the corner of my college town. The book was a dusty hardcover on forgotten American settlements. Inside, folded between two yellowed pages, was a hand-drawn map. It wasn't professionally made, just pen on old paper. But one thing caught my eye, a small town labeled Raventon, deep in the woods of northern Pennsylvania. The weird part? I never heard of it. It wasn't on Google Maps. It didn't come up in any search. I even asked a couple of professors in the history department. One of them, an old guy with a lot of weird stories, paused when I mentioned the name. He gave me a long look and just said, "Some places aren't forgotten. They're buried." That was all it took. The following weekend, I packed a bag, took my camera, printed the map, and drove out of town. The deeper I went into the mountains, the fewer cars I saw. Eventually, the GPS lost signal. I ended up relying entirely on the map. When I reached the last marked point, the end of an old logging road, I parked my car and hiked the rest of the way in. The forest was unnaturally quiet. No birds, no insects. Just the sound of my own footsteps crunching over dry leaves. After about an hour of hiking, I found it. The first thing I saw was a rusted old road sign lying on the ground, half covered in moss. "Welcome to Raventon, EST 1887. The letters were faded, but still legible. A single overgrown road stretched into what looked like a small village. I should have turned around right there. The town was wrong. Houses stood intact, but lifeless. The windows were either boarded up or missing entirely. Doors hung open on broken hinges, but it didn't look abandoned for 100 years like it should have. No, this place looked like people had just left. Or maybe they were still here. I walked through the main street. There was a general store with a dusty window. Inside, the shelves were fully stocked. Canned food, boxes of cereal, newspapers on the counter dated only 2 years ago. And then I heard something upstairs. A faint creak. I froze. "Hello." I called out. Nothing. I backed out and decided to keep walking. I didn't want to push my luck. I checked my phone. No signal. Battery was still 84%, but the screen was glitching, flickering faintly. I kept filming everything. Around the corner, I saw what looked like a church, a schoolhouse, and a post office. Every building felt like a movie set. Real, but not alive. And then I heard it. A whisper. "Don't trust the lights." It was faint, but definitely there. I spun around. No one. I walked faster. I found a small house with a front door barely hanging on. Inside, it was dark but not empty. There was furniture, photos on the wall, plates still on the dining table, a fireplace filled with ashes. I went into the basement. I don't know why I did it. Curiosity, maybe. Stupidity, more likely. It smelled like mold and damp earth. I found a box of VHS tapes stacked next to a generator that looked like it hadn't worked in years. One tape had something written in red ink. "Do not play after dark." I took it with me, and I was coming fast. The sun was dropping behind the trees, and I knew I couldn't make it back to my car before dark. I decided to sleep in the church. It was the only building that felt remotely safe. Inside, I found a candle, matches, and a journal left on the pulpit. It belonged to the town's last pastor. The entries were scattered, some pages torn out, others smeared with ink and what looked like dried blood. But the last page chilled me to the bone. It read, "The town is caught in a loop. Every night they return. The ones who stayed too long. Don't look at them. Don't speak. Don't run. Just pray the candle stays lit. That night, I didn't sleep. I lit the candle and sat with my back against the wall. At exactly midnight, I heard footsteps outside the church. Then more. A shuffling, whispering, like dozens of voices just outside the door. Then 3 knocks. Slow, rhythmic. I didn't move. A voice whispered through the crack in the door. "We see you." I clutched the candle, trying not to breathe. The door creaked but didn't open. I sat like that until sunrise. And then silence. When I finally stepped outside, the town looked exactly the same, as if nothing had happened. I ran. I didn't stop. I got back to my car and drove until I had signal again. I uploaded all my footage, wrote everything down, and swore I'd never go back. A week later, I showed the tape to a friend, the one that said not to watch after dark. He laughed. "It's probably just old footage," he said. That night, his house burned down. They never found his body. The map I found? It's gone. The book too. Like it was never there. But sometimes, late at night, my phone vibrates. A text from a number with no name. Just 2 words. "Come back." And in my dreams, I do. I thought it was over. I deleted the files, burned the tape, changed my number. But the texts kept coming. "Come back. You left something behind. We're still waiting." At first, I ignored them, blocked every number, got a new phone. But the messages would still appear, sometimes as pop-ups on my computer, sometimes whispered through my headphones when no audio was playing. The worst was the night I got a video, a grainy, black and white clip. It was me sleeping, in my own bed. In the background, just beyond the frame, a tall figure with no face stood perfectly still. I started dreaming about Raventon, not the way I remembered it. Worse, rotting buildings, screams echoing in the distance. The sky stained a deep red, and those figures, they were everywhere, closer each time. One morning, I woke up with dried mud on my feet. My camera, the one I'd locked away, had footage on it I didn't remember recording. A shaky shot of the Raventon sign, newer this time, as if the town had changed, evolved. And then something even more terrifying. In the footage, I wasn't alone. A woman stood beside me, pale, dirty, her face covered in blood. She whispered, "You brought them back with you." I tried to move on with my life. Went back to school, focused on anything else. But the people around me started acting strange. One friend started sleepwalking and drawing maps of the town. Another disappeared entirely. Her last text to me just said, "They won't let me leave again." Then one night, I woke up to a noise. Footsteps. In my apartment. I grabbed my phone, turned on the flashlight, and tiptoed through the dark. Every room was empty. But as I passed the mirror in the hallway, I saw them. Not me. Them. 2 figures standing just behind me. Faces blank, eyes completely black. And before I could turn around, they vanished. I called a paranormal investigator. An old guy named Marcus who dealt with haunted places and cursed objects. He listened to my story, then sat in silence for a while. When he finally spoke, his voice was grim. Raventon was a purged town, he said. A place where people were sent when they needed to disappear. Criminals, traitors, the damned. They weren't just hidden from the world. They were cut off, wiped from history. I asked him, "Then why is it still there?" He looked at me with dead serious eyes. "Because you found it, and now it remembers you." I decided to go back. It was the only way. I took a different route this time. The GPS still didn't work, but I could feel where it was, like the town was guiding me. This time, I found it faster. The sign was gone, but the road was clearer. The town looked different, newer almost, like it had rebuilt itself in my absence. The houses were intact, the windows no longer broken, and the worst part? There were lights on inside, people moving behind curtains, shadows watching me. I raised my camera, hit record, and stepped back into Raventon. The moment I crossed the threshold, I heard a low hum, like a vibration in my bones. The sky overhead darkened unnaturally fast, and every single light in the town flickered at once. A child's voice echoed from somewhere nearby. "Why did you leave us?" I turned and saw a little girl standing barefoot in the middle of the street. Her eyes were sewn shut. Her mouth was moving, but the voice was coming from behind me. I ran. Every house I passed, something inside moved. Shadows against the curtains. Faces peering out from the attic vents. Whispers, louder now, all calling my name. I made it to the church, the same one I'd hidden in before. But it was different now. Inside, it was pristine. Clean pews, lit candles, a massive stained glass window that showed me, standing in the center of town, surrounded by faceless people. And then I heard it. The bell. Bong. The sound hit like a wave of nausea. My ears rang. My nose started to bleed. Bong. The candles blew out. The church doors slammed shut behind me. Bong. And from the shadows, they came. The town's residents. Dozens of them. Tall, slow-moving, skin like wax. Some missing eyes, others missing mouths. All of them walking straight toward me, silent except for the creaking of their joints. I screamed and backed up until I hit the altar. That's when I saw her again. The woman from my dream. The blood-covered face. "You can't leave," she said. "You brought us back. Now you stay. The rest is a blur." I remember running. Darkness swallowing everything. Buildings crumbling around me. The sky above tearing open like paper, revealing something behind it, something massive. Watching. I woke up days later in the forest, covered in scratches, mud in my mouth. My phone shattered, but the footage was still there. And now, you're hearing this. Watching. Listening. Maybe you're curious. Maybe you'll look up Raventon. Maybe you'll go looking for it. Don't. Because once you find it, it never lets you go. I'm not sure how long I was unconscious. When I woke up, the trees were gone. Everything was gone. No sky. No ground. Just fog. Thick, soupy, endless fog. I was lying on something cold and hard, not dirt. It felt like concrete, but it pulsed beneath me like a heartbeat. I sat up, and I saw Raventon again. But it wasn't the town I remembered. It had changed. The buildings now stretched upward unnaturally tall, some curving like bones. The streets weren't paved, they were veins. Pulsing, fleshy veins that twisted under my feet with every step. And there was no sun, just a dull, red light from nowhere. I heard the voices again, not whispering anymore, screaming. I followed the noise. Something inside me said don't, but something stronger pulled me forward. I passed houses with windows like eyes. I swear they blinked. Some even bled. The screaming grew louder until I reached the old schoolhouse. Inside, it was pitch black, but I could feel them. The people I'd left behind. Or maybe they were never people. Maybe they were what the town became when it was forgotten. I turned on my flashlight and saw them. They hung from the ceiling like puppets, suspended by black tendrils threaded through their spines and eyes and mouths. Dozens of them. Hundreds. All with faces twisted in silent screams. And then they moved. In perfect sync. Heads jerking toward me. No sound. Just the sickening crack of bone and rope. The lights exploded. Total darkness. And a single voice echoed through the room. not spoken aloud, but inside my skull. You brought light to what should have stayed dark. Now we'll make you part of us. I ran. The ground beneath me writhed. My flashlight flickered, and when it came back on, I was somewhere else. Back in my apartment. For a moment, I thought I'd escaped. Maybe it was all a hallucination, a psychotic break. But then I noticed the details. My calendar now read 1891. The photographs on my wall weren't mine. They were old, sepia-toned. The people in them looked like me, but their eyes were wrong. Black. Empty. I stepped outside, and Raventon was there. Not outside the city. Not in the woods. It had followed me. The town was spreading. I went to the library. Found newspapers. Records. Anything. Raventon didn't exist in any book, but its name kept appearing in handwritten margins, scribbled like warnings in the corners of old maps and journals. One note said, "Once you know its name, it knows yours." Another, "It is not a place. It is a pattern." I found old photos of people who disappeared over the years. Missing hikers, lost children, entire families, and in each photo, in the background, barely visible, that damn town sign, "Welcome to Raventon." I went back home and locked every door. But it didn't matter. When I looked out my window, I no longer saw the city. I saw Main Street. The fog had reached my doorstep. I heard the church bell ring again, even though the church was hundreds of miles away. And this time, it rang 4 times. Marcus, the investigator, once told me, if the bell rings 4 times, it's not warning you. It's calling you home. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't, because every mirror in my apartment now reflected Raventon behind me. And sometimes things moved in the glass. I tried burning my apartment down. Gasoline, lighter, everything. But the flames turned black, cold. And then I heard the girl again, the one with sewn eyes. She stood in the fire, untouched. Her mouth opened impossibly wide, and she said, "You're almost hollow now. When you're empty, it takes you fully." I screamed until my throat bled. The next morning, I was back in Raventon. No transition, no warning, just there. The town looked delighted, if that's even a word you can use for buildings and shadows and streets. But I felt it. It wanted me. I wandered for what felt like days. I no longer needed food, or sleep, or rest. I just walked. Streets folded in on themselves. Signs wrote and rewrote themselves in blood. And above everything, the sky split again. But this time I looked. What I saw behind that rip in the sky, it wasn't a god. It wasn't even a creature. It was a mouth. A massive, black, endless mouth, with teeth made of towns and cities and broken memories. It doesn't eat people. It eats reality. And Raventon is its tongue. I'm writing this from a place that doesn't exist anymore. The clock on the wall ticks backward. My fingernails have started to fall out. I think I'm forgetting things, like my own voice. My name. There are others here with me. Hollowed out bodies walking the streets, repeating the same movements. Looping scenes. A man turning on a lamp. A woman weeping in a rocking chair. A child screaming with no mouth. We're all echoes now. But I remember you. And I'm sending this out before I forget how. Don't look for Raventon. Don't say it's... I don't know how long I wandered. Time wasn't working anymore. It looped, broke, stuttered like a corrupted file. One moment I was walking through an alley. The next I was back in the church. Then a field of crosses stretching endlessly under a black sun. My body didn't tire. My skin didn't bleed. I had become elastic. Like my soul was being stretched thinner and thinner. And then I heard her again. The girl with the sewn eyes. She wasn't a child anymore. She stood at the center of a great courtyard, surrounded by faceless people kneeling in a circle, heads tilted back. Her mouth moved with no sound, but the sky obeyed. It cracked open again, and this time something came through. It wasn't a creature, it was a structure, a cathedral of bones and teeth and smoke. It descended slowly, attaching itself to the town like a parasite finding its host. She pointed at me, and every head in that circle turned at once. I ran. Again. But there was nowhere to run. Raventon was endless now. Streets led to forests that led to oceans made of ink that led back to my childhood home. And in every window, every reflection, every corner, they watched. The ones who stayed too long. The hollowed. I found Marcus, or what was left of him. He was hanging from the ceiling of the post office, body cocooned in webbing made of hair and teeth. His eyes blinked once when I called his name, and his mouth moved to whisper one final thing. You're not the first, but you might be the last. The ground shook. Sirens blared in the distance, not police sirens. Something older, something wrong. And then the lights came. Columns of pale, buzzing light that burned shadows into the air. Figures descended inside them, tall, skeletal, wearing masks of human faces. One by one, they reached into the people around them and pulled out light, souls, memories? I don't know. But the people collapsed like paper dolls afterward. One of them looked at me, and I felt it peel something out of me without touching me. A memory of my mother's voice. A birthday. Gone. Just gone. I dropped to my knees. I begged, and the sky answered, with a scream. Not mine. Not human. Not even earthly. It split the sky like thunder in reverse. And from that rip came fire, darkness, and a choir of voices all chanting one word. Stay. I don't remember standing up. I only remember walking toward the cathedral. It had grown now, taller than anything. Spires of teeth, windows that wept, and above it all, that red light, pulsing like a wound in the sky. The doors opened for me. Inside, I saw my own body. Not metaphorically, literally. Standing in the center, back turned, breathing slow. I walked toward it, trembling, and when it turned, it wasn't me. It wore my face, but its eyes were empty. It smiled and said, now there's two of us. One must stay. Everything exploded. I woke up in a hospital bed. White walls, machines beeping, a nurse writing on a clipboard. I blinked. She turned around and smiled. She had no eyes, just skin sewn shut. The machines began to scream. And then, I woke up again, back in Raventon. This time, for real. There was no escape. The town had decided. I was home,